Hi, I'm Steve Kindig, and I'm here to talk about two Panasonic Ultra HD Blu-ray players. I'm going to talk about the DP-UB820 and the DP-UB9000. I'm going to start off talking about the DP-UB820. This is a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray player. It plays both 4K Blu-rays as well as standard 1080p Blu-rays, and even 3D Blu-rays. One of the things that's probably special about the Panasonic players is they've paid a lot of attention to the HDR performance. And that's something that different TV manufacturers handle HDR in different ways. And one of the key differences is in what they call tone mapping. And these Panasonic players have a very sophisticated way of dealing with tone mapping. And they make it possible for you to get a better looking display and see more fine detail in HDR content. Both models have tone mapping features that are pretty much the same. But first I want to talk about the 820. It actually gives you 4 different settings for different types of displays. So there's one setting for OLED, and one for high brightness LCD TVs, one for medium brightness LCD TVs, and then another for basic LCD TVs and projectors. And both of those tend to have lower brightness capabilities. And then another cool feature is something that Panasonic calls HDR Optimizer, which lets you adjust the HDR setting according to the brightness in your room. So it gives you really 2 ways to kind of optimize HDR for your setup. And that's important, and that's going to work for both the, whether you're playing a 4K Blu-ray disc or using the built-in apps in the player. And both of these players support 4K streaming for Netflix, Amazon, and YouTube. So one of the reasons these players do such a great job with HDR is they have really powerful video processing built into them. And that processing not only does a great job with HDR, but also with just upscaling in general. Whether you're watching like a standard 1080p Blu-ray or maybe even a DVD, the picture quality is really exceptional. And it also has a 7.1 channel analog output on the back, which is something that you don't see in many Blu-ray players anymore. And what that means is that even if you have an older receiver, like a really old receiver that doesn't have HDMI inputs, you can still connect this player to your receiver if it has analog input, and you can still get full 7.1 channel sound. And this player also has dual HDMI outputs, and one is for video and one is for audio. And you can use the audio output on a receiver that's maybe, say, only a few years old, that has HDMI inputs but maybe doesn't have the most up-to-date HDCP copy protection. You can use this HDMI output for that, and then there's a completely separate one that you would connect to your TV, and that's just for video. Let me talk a little bit about Panasonic's flagship player, the DP-UB9000. So it has pretty much the same video features as the 820. It does add a couple more HDR settings, so you can even do a better job of customizing it to your particular display. But really, this player is sort of more designed for someone who's both an audiophile and a videophile, because it has an upgraded digital to analog converter, and it also has, in addition to having a 7.1 channel analog output, it has a dedicated stereo output that's analog RCA. It also has balanced XLR outputs for stereo, which is great if you have like a preamp processor or even just a stereo preamp. And other than that, really, if you just pick up this player, you can kind of feel the difference. It weighs about 3 times as much. This is an all-metal chassis. This one is mostly plastic. And this one also has a completely different disk drive. It's a very rugged, heavy-duty disk drive, and it features a steel plate in it to reduce vibration. really the entire construction of the 9000 is aimed at minimizing vibration. You may be familiar with the players that Oppo used to make. They were very popular with audiophiles and videophiles, provided reference picture and sound quality, but they stopped building those players last year, and so we've kind of been looking around ever since for players to replace them, and we think these Panasonics should fill the bill. Again, we're really excited to have them in our mix now. If you have any questions about these or any other 4K Blu-ray players, please give us a call.